While one person looks directly at you, the other suddenly looks away. Maybe they glance down at the floor, look to the side, or avoid meeting your eyes altogether. And in that moment, most people quickly assume something must be wrong. They assume the person is hiding something, feeling guilty, or simply being dishonest. But the truth is far more complex than that. Eye contact is one of the most powerful signals in human communication. Without saying a single word, it can express confidence, honesty, attraction, discomfort, and sometimes even fear. But something interesting happens in many everyday conversations. Because avoiding eye contact can reveal many different things about a person's mind and emotional state. Sometimes it reflects anxiety, sometimes it reveals insecurity. Other times it has nothing to do with deception at all, but simply how someone is naturally wired to interact with the world. And once you start understanding the psychology behind these small behaviors, everyday interactions begin to look very different. So if you've ever wondered why some people struggle to maintain eye contact while others do it effortlessly, stay with me, because what you're about to learn may change the way you interpret conversations forever. And if human psychology and subtle social signals like this interest you, consider subscribing to the channel. Because here on Mindframe, we explore the patterns of human behavior that most people overlook. So subscribe, like the video, and let's get into it. In many situations, avoiding eye contact begins with something very simple: shyness. Some people are naturally reserved in the way they interact with others. When attention is directed at them, especially through direct eye contact, it can feel intense, almost like standing in a spotlight. For someone who is shy, holding eye contact may create a subtle pressure that feels difficult to sustain. Their instinct is not to hide anything, but simply to reduce that pressure by looking away for a moment. If you think about it, you may have noticed this in quiet individuals who speak thoughtfully, but rarely hold someone's gaze for long. It's not a sign of dishonesty or disrespect. It is often just a reflection of their temperament. And once you begin observing this in real conversations, you start to realize that the human mind is constantly balancing comfort and exposure in social situations. Closely related to this is anxiety and nervousness, which can make eye contact feel surprisingly overwhelming. When someone is anxious, their body is already reacting to stress. Their heart rate may increase, their thoughts may race, and their attention becomes scattered. In that state, maintaining eye contact can feel like adding another layer of intensity to an already uncomfortable situation. The eyes are powerful channels of communication, and when anxiety is present, they can feel almost too revealing. Looking away becomes a quick way to regain a sense of control. You might notice this during job interviews, presentations, or when someone is speaking to a person they perceive as important. The person is not necessarily trying to avoid connection. They are simply managing the tension that comes with it. If you pay attention the next time you are in a high-pressure conversation, you may notice how frequently people shift their gaze without even realizing it. For others, avoiding eye contact comes from insecurity or low self-confidence. When someone doubts themselves, even a simple conversation can trigger the feeling that they are being evaluated or judged. Eye contact can intensify that feeling because it creates the sense that the other person is reading every expression and every hesitation. To protect themselves from that imagined judgment, some individuals instinctively lower their gaze. It is a quiet form of self-protection. The person may still want to participate in the conversation, but direct eye contact makes them feel exposed. This is especially common in people who are still developing their confidence or who have experienced criticism in the past. Over time, patterns like this can become automatic, and the person may not even realize why they look away so often. If you have ever noticed someone doing this, it might be worth considering that what looks like avoidance could actually be vulnerability. Sometimes the reason is much more emotional. Embarrassment can immediately break eye contact. When someone feels embarrassed, their first instinct is often to withdraw attention from themselves. Looking away helps create a small psychological distance from the moment. In a similar way, sadness can also cause people to avoid eye contact. When someone is feeling low or emotionally heavy, maintaining eye contact can feel draining, almost like exposing feelings they would rather keep private. Their gaze may drift downward or toward the distance, not because they are disengaged from the conversation, but because their mind is processing something deeper internally. Another powerful factor is feeling overwhelmed. In conversations that carry strong emotions or too much information, the mind sometimes needs a moment to process everything that is happening. Looking away from someone's eyes can briefly reduce the sensory load, allowing the brain to think more clearly. This connects to something interesting about human cognition. When people are thinking deeply or focusing internally, they often look away naturally. Researchers have noticed that people frequently break eye contact while trying to recall information, solve a problem, or form a thoughtful response. Their attention shifts inward, and the eyes follow that shift. So if someone glances away during a conversation, it may simply mean they are concentrating more deeply on what is being said. Personality also plays an important role here, especially in the case of introversion. Introverted individuals often process social interactions differently from extroverts. For them, social energy is something that must be managed carefully. Continuous eye contact can feel intense because it creates a constant channel of emotional exchange. Looking away briefly allows them to regulate that intensity and remain comfortable in the interaction. This does not mean they are uninterested or disengaged. In fact, many introverted people listen very carefully during conversations. They simply interact with social stimulation in a quieter, more internal way. Understanding this can completely change how you interpret someone's behavior. At other times, eye contact becomes difficult because of discomfort, fear, or intimidation. When someone feels intimidated by another person, especially someone they perceive as more powerful, confident, or authoritative, maintaining eye contact can feel almost confrontational. In many social situations, avoiding eye contact becomes a subtle sign of submission. It is a way of signaling that the person does not want conflict or dominance in the interaction. This dynamic appears not only in humans, but across many social animals as well. The act of lowering the gaze can communicate respect, caution, or the desire to avoid tension. There are also moments when emotional complexity enters the picture. Attraction or emotional vulnerability can make eye contact surprisingly difficult. When someone feels drawn to another person, the intensity of direct eye contact can feel almost too revealing. Looking into someone's eyes for too long may expose feelings that the person is not ready to show openly. So they glance away, look down, or break the gaze for a moment. It's an interesting paradox. Sometimes the people who look away the most are not the ones who feel nothing, but the ones who feel something very strongly. Of course, there are situations where avoiding eye contact can relate to guilt, deception, or embarrassment about something that has happened. When someone feels they have done something wrong, their body language may naturally become more closed and guarded. Eye contact can feel uncomfortable because it creates the sense of being seen too clearly. However, it is important not to jump to conclusions too quickly here. While deception can sometimes lead to gaze avoidance, psychology research has shown that people often overestimate how reliable this signal is. Many honest individuals also avoid eye contact simply because they feel nervous or uncomfortable in the moment. In other cases, the explanation is far more ordinary. Distraction can easily break eye contact. Our attention is constantly shifting between different thoughts, sounds, and visual cues in the environment. When the mind drifts, the eyes often drift with it. Exhaustion can have a similar effect. When someone is tired, maintaining steady eye contact can require more mental energy than they have available. Their gaze may wander or lower simply because their focus is fading. There is also the influence of cultural upbringing, which shapes how people learn to use eye contact from a young age. In some cultures, direct eye contact is encouraged as a sign of confidence and honesty. In others, prolonged eye contact can be interpreted as disrespectful, especially when directed toward elders or authority figures. Someone raised in that environment may naturally look away during conversations, not because they are uncomfortable, but because that is the respectful behavior they were taught. And when you consider all these possibilities together, something becomes clear. The simple act of looking away carries many different meanings, depending on the person, the situation, and the emotions involved. Sometimes it reflects nervousness, sometimes deep thought, sometimes vulnerability, and sometimes nothing more than a momentary shift of attention. This is why learning to observe behavior carefully can be so valuable. Instead of assuming that a single gesture reveals everything, you begin to look at patterns, context, and emotional tone. The more you pay attention to these subtle signals in everyday interactions, the more you realize that human behavior is rarely as simple as it first appears. So, in conclusion, understanding these patterns doesn't mean becoming suspicious of everyone around you. It simply means becoming more aware of how human behavior works. The more you learn to recognize these signals, the easier it becomes to understand the emotions, intentions, and internal struggles that often remain hidden beneath ordinary conversations. And the truth is, most people go through life never learning to notice these patterns at all. They misinterpret behaviors, misunderstand intentions, and miss the deeper psychological signals that are happening right in front of them. That's exactly why this channel exists. On Mindframe, we explore the subtle psychological dynamics behind everyday human behavior, the things most people never stop to analyze, but that quietly shape how conversations, relationships, and social interactions unfold. If this kind of insight interests you, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because the videos here are designed to help you see human behavior with a level of clarity that most people never develop. And the truth is, the earlier you start understanding these patterns, the easier it becomes to navigate conversations, relationships, and social situations with confidence. Before you leave, I'm curious about something. Think about the people you interact with in your daily life. Which of these behaviors have you noticed the most? Do you know someone who frequently avoids eye contact? Or have you ever caught yourself doing it without realizing why? Let me know in the comments. And if you found this video insightful, don't forget to like it and share it with someone who might find it interesting as well. Because the more people understand these subtle psychological signals, the more aware and thoughtful our interactions can become. And if you don't want to miss the next insight about human psychology, make sure you subscribe now, because some of the patterns we'll explore in the next videos might completely change the way you see the people around you.